Hi guys, welcome back to the Happy Puppers. So today's topic of discussion is how you can train your dog to walk on the leash. Now, leash training is something that every guardian needs to do. Like, you don't have an option with leash training. Every dog parent is responsible for their dogs. Why is leash training important? Is the first question every dog parent has. So, if you do not train your dog to walk on the leash, when you take your dog outside, your dog may behave in an unruly manner. He may attack other dogs, or he may get attacked by other dogs. Now, most often people are worried about their dogs attacking other dogs. They do not really see if their dog is docile, why they need a leash training. If their dog is doing good off leash, especially. If your dog follows you around, listens to all your commands, it's excellent. But you still cannot undermine the importance of an actual leash training. Trust me, it can save your dog and you in potentially dangerous situations. Now, coming to the fact that if your dog is attuned to you, listens to you, is docile enough, and does not bother to attack other dogs, animals, or people on the street, why does your dog need leash training in that case? Now, the thing you need to understand here is that your dog may not be the instigator, but the other dog or some other animal on the road might act as the instigator. If your dog has submissive behavior, this can lead to a fight, bite marks on your dogs, and a very unpleasant situation overall. So, if your dog is trained to be on leash, your dog will be on the leash, will listen to your commands, and you can protect your dog, which will not be the case if your dog is not leash trained. On the other hand, if you have an aggressive dog and you are trying to leash train your dog, and your dog is pulling you on the road, leading his or her own merry way, and you are being pulled, you're being dragged, those situations can be pretty unpleasant. So, you need to train your dog to walk in the right manner when on leash and when on roads. Now that I have discussed why leash training is important, let's get to the next part. How should you start the leash training process? Every dog training starts at home. You cannot expect your dog to suddenly start listening to you when he or she is outside. When you take your dogs out, there's a lot to see, explore, sense, take in. There's a lot going on basically. So you cannot expect your dog to pay full attention to you when he or she is outside the house. The region which is relatively distraction free is your house. If you have other dogs, when you're training one dog, make sure that the other dogs are not in the same vicinity where you are training. It is preferable to have the specific dog separated from the group during the training process. You want to provide the least number of distraction to your pup. Now that we have this section covered, let's move on to the next part, how to actually start the training process. Now, if your dog has never been leash trained, does not know how to be on a leash, then you need to take things really slowly and go one step at a time. So, to start, you give your dog the harness if you use a harness, or if you use a collar, you give your dog the collar and the leash. Like I use a harness for Delta. So I will give him, when I was training him when I was giving him leash training, I used to give him the harness, give him the leash, let him play with it. He is a pup who, what should I say, who does not like changes. So he needs to get accustomed to something before you actually, ease him into it. Some dogs pick it up quickly, some dogs take time. Delta is, what would be the right word for it? Is apprehensive. Almost everything. So he needs to know for himself that it is okay. Only then will he wear it. Even if it is from us. He trusts us, but he needs to know for himself as well. And I respect that. So I gave him the leash, I gave him his harness, and I let him play with it. Once he got comfortable enough, I started just putting it on his body, keeping it on his back, then moving it around on his body and making sure that he was playing with something else the entire time. So his brain was not completely on the leash, his brain was somewhere else as well. Eventually, so that he does not realize what is exactly going on. Eventually, I put the harness collar on him. He never actually had a collar. I tried it once and he hated collars, so I didn't bother with it. I put the harness on him, I clipped it in, and let it be. Then I allowed him a few days to get used to the harness, the feeling of the harness. He would wear harness and he would stay at home. I wouldn't take him out. Fine. Once he got used to the harness, then I put the leash on the harness. I clipped the leash on the harness and I let him be. Again, 2-3 days. I wanted to let Delta be completely comfortable with the harness and the leash before I go on to the next step. Once I had all of these sections covered, the next step was actually the walk process. So when you're training your dog to walk properly on a leash, you need to first start the training process at home. As I mentioned before, if you start the training process outside your home, there is a lot of distraction. Your dog may not want to listen to you. He may be distracted. There's so much. Imagine there's a squirrel running, then there's another dog, then your dog might meet some of his friends, or basically anything can happen. Or he might get distracted by the oncoming traffic or the other people on the road. He might want to greet them depending on your dog's personality. Delta does not like greeting other people. He is the king and he maintains that persona. So for Delta, I started the training process at home. He was comfortable with the leash, he was comfortable with the harness. Next, I picked up the leash and I showed him that when I pull, you come. Initially with treats. So I would offer him a treat, which would be a chicken. In Delta's case, I would offer him a chicken and I would gently ask him, coax him to my side. When he would come, he would get the reward. Now, some people may also advise you to use clicker training for this, but I never use clicker training. I was already holding the leash in one hand, the treat on the other. Clicker is kind of difficult to manage for me. I have small hands. So managing 2-3 things becomes difficult. So I only used a treat. And I use the word yes and no as an indication of what to do and what not to do. So when he would come towards me to get the treat, I would encourage him by saying, yes, 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 come on, yes. And he understands that yes means he's doing something good and he needs to continue. So he would continue, he would come and he would get the treat. So once your dog gets acclimatized by the command, come, you also have to train your dog in the command, come. Come means you are moving ahead, or you can use the word heel. I use come. I use let's go, I use come. Delta is well versed in many of the phrases, so I can use them interchangeably. There is no problem with his understanding. Specifically, let's go. And now, I cannot use let's go in any other sentence because if I say let's go, he would perk up and he would think that it's time for his walkies. So I would use let's go or come. So it would be let's go, Delta. He knows now it's time for walkies. So he would come along. Now he knows if he sees the harness, if he sees the leash, it's all time for walkies. But for the initial stages, this is how you train your dog. Now, some schools of thought suggest that you start the training process by backing up. You teach your dog to back up first before moving forward on the leash. So what you do is that you plug in the harness, you put the harness on, you plug in the leash, and you allow your dog to move backwards. You take one step back, you offer the treat. Your dog follows you. You take another step back, you offer the treat. Your dog follows you. So the first part of the training process is to train your dog to walk backwards. This builds stability and trust in the relationship. Trust is the foundation of every relationship, even if it is with your dog. Your dog needs to be able to trust you completely, because when your dog is stuck in a dangerous situation or when he is feeling vulnerable, he would look up to you. So that trust is of utmost importance. So once you have trained your dog to back up, then you start to move forward. You say, come on, let's go. And you move forward. Now, once you do this in one room, I would advise you to do this in every part of the house. Then, once your dog has mastered the command in every part of the house, then you bring in people, which would, in other words, mean distractions. You bring in some people or you allow the other dogs to be free if you have more than one dog. Like in my case, I only have Delta, so there are no other dogs. In your case, if you have other dogs, you let them free. And then you train your dog to walk on leash and pay attention to you at all times. You can either use the command, look at me, to get your dog's attention to you if he is being distracted, or you can use any other verbal command which is, you're comfortable with. But the thing that you need to focus on is that the command stays the same every time you use it. Like, you cannot use look at me this time, then in the next time you use look. Your dog will get confused. So you have to make sure the command is one specific phrase that is being used every damn time. Okay? Now that we have mastered come, we have mastered how to walk backwards, how to walk forwards, and how to get your dog's attention on you. Now, once you have successfully completed all of these steps, next you're ready to take your dog out of the house. I would suggest to first do the training in your backyard, because on the road there might be cars and other vehicles that your dog may get distracted with. So start it in the backyard. Backyard has nature, backyard has birds, backyard has trees, squirrels, most of the things that distract your dog. So you take the training process to the backyard next. In your backyard, you do the same steps. Now, if your dog seems very distracted, or sometimes it may happen that your dog is just not interested in the training process, let it be. Do not force your dog to, train even if he is not feeling like it, because you will not achieve anything. Trust me. Your dog will continue to be distracted and you'll get frustrated. And frustration is not the way you teach your dog anything. So once your dog is comfortable with the training process in the backyard, next you take your dog out on the road. Now, the first day when you go out, do not try to cover 1 kilometer or a few miles in the same day. You just focus on making sure that your dog's attention stays on you at all times and he is listening to your commands. Now, for the first few days, or possibly for the first week or two, make sure that your dog stays close to the house. Just go up to 1 or 2 houses and then come back. If you think your dog needs more exercise than that, then you keep repeating that same region again and again. You go back and forth, but you don't take your dog beyond that. Your dog needs to get used to the environment, the surrounding, the smells, the different distractions before you can take your dog out further. This is so that your dog is completely comfortable going a certain distance before it is increased further. Because if you add new pile on or your dog, like if you go to new places every day, that's a lot of new kind of stimulation. So your dog will not be able to pay attention to you. If you want a dog who is walking properly on the leash, listening to every of your commands, then you have to take the things slowly and take it step by step. You cannot jump steps. So now that you have covered all of these steps, one crucial point I would like to emphasize on is that if it seems to you that your dog is not following all commands or is stuck at one specific command, you need to retrace the training process. Never scold your dog, never punish your dog, never beat your dog, never shout at your dog, never use shock collars. These are not the solution to training your dog the right way. These will only harm the relationship that you have with your dog and will develop a sense of mistrust in your dog towards you. And you do not want that. So when you are training your dog, and if your dog seems stuck on a specific command, it's advisable that you go back, retrain your dog on that specific command, and then come back to the training process. You may have to go back and forth a few times before your dog is completely well versed with everything. But it is worth it, because at the end, it's your dog. You don't want him to, you want your dog to feel safe, comfortable, and, completely at ease when he's on walk. Walk should be an enjoyment. It should not be a strain. So, you follow these guidelines that I laid out on you. And if you want to read the complete process of training your dog to walk properly on the leash, you can check out the blog post. The link will be in the description section. So have a look at that. And if you have any queries, feel free to ask me either in the comment section, or you can put it up in the comment section of my blog post. I will be happy to help. I guess I have covered everything with regards to leash training your dog. Now it is your time to start the training process. If you face any difficulty and if you feel that you are stuck on a specific step, feel free to contact me. You can also reach out to me on many of my social media channels. I am almost most often available unless I'm busy making another blog post. But I'm available on social media, so you can reach me on that. And yeah, I guess that's it. That's it about this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.